The discussion for today will focus on algae. To give a quick description, they are ubiquitous and diverse that ranges from unicellular to giant multicellular forms. They produce chlorophyll and thus are autotrophic and are capable of photosynthesis. They do, however, lack tissue differentiation and thus do not have true stems, leaves, or roots of the more complex higher plants. They are eukaryotic organisms, thus their nucleus and chloroplasts are membrane-bound. Singularly referred to as alga, and the study of it is called phycology. We have here the overview of the discussion, which will begin with the general characteristics, followed by the classification and the representative organisms for each, and last would be for the recent algal updates. For the first general characteristic, we have the plastids. Plastids are membrane-bound, semi-autonomous organelles found in algae and other eukaryotic organisms. This is the most prominent feature of an algal cell, which makes it an important characteristic for algal cell classification. Plastids consists of chlorophyll A and B, which are called chloroplasts, and the one which lacks chlorophyll B are called chromatophores. This has originated from the endosymbiosis of cyanobacterium. For algae, the two principal forms of food storage are polysaccharides and fats. Next we have is the cell wall. Most of the members of algae consist of a cell wall, and the cell wall consists of non-living materials which are variously classified. In algae, polysaccharides are the chief constituents of the cell wall with two major components. First, the fibrillar, which consists of the cellulose, mannans, and xylans, and the second, the amorphous, which consists of the alginic acid, fucoidan, and galactans. The fibrillar component forms the skeleton of the cell wall, and the amorphous component forms the matrix embedding the fibrillar part. Different groups of algae have differential natures of cell walls. Lastly, we have the flagella. A flagellum is a thread-like fine structure that originates from the cytoplasm. The number and position of the flagella varies in all algal cells. Flagella are meant for locomotion in algal cells. This can be equal or unequal in length, and can be inserted anteriorly or posteriorly, and it can also be inserted laterally. When equal in length, flagella are termed isocont, and unequal conditions are termed anisocont. In heterocont conditions, both tinsel and whiplash type of flagella are present. The whiplash flagellum is a smooth naked flagellum and it is also known as acronematic. Tinsel flagellum, which is also known as pantonematic or flimmer, is characterized by minute hairs on its surface termed mastigonemes.
Now that we've finished discussing the general characteristics of algae, we're going to talk about its classifications and how they differ from each other. Now, the first one is the chlorophyceae. It is also called the green algae. The chlorophyceae has 9 orders, namely the Volvocales, Chlorococales, Ulutricales, Cladophorales, Chaetophorales, Odogoniales, Conjugales, Sipohonales, and Carales. The nature of its cell is mainly cellulose, pectin, and rarely hemicellulose. Its food reserve can come in the form of starch, and also starch grains within chloroplast envelope. It has 2 or 4 flagella. They are equal and whiplash. Its representative species is the Chlamydomonas sp. Now the next one would be the Xanthophyceae. Xanthophyceae has 4 orders: the Heterochlorhydales, Heterococales, Heterotricales, and Heterosiphonales. The Xanthophyceae is also called the yellow-green algae. The nature of its cell wall is only pectin. Its food reserve are oil, fats, eucosin, and within chloroplast. It has 2 flagella. They are unequal and tinsel and whiplash. Its representative is the Boucheria sessilis. For the third one, we have the Chrysophyceae. The Chrysophyceae is also called the orange algae. It has 3 orders, namely the Chrysomonadales, Chrysophyralis, and the Chrysotrichales. The nature of its soluble is leucosin, fats, and chrysolaminarin. Its food reserve are oil, fats, chrysolaminarin, and the cytoplasm. Now it can have a single or 2 flagella, which are unequal in either both whiplash or one whiplash and other tinsel. Its representative organism is a Dinobryon divergens. The next one would be the Bacillariophyceae. It is also called the diatoms, or the yellow or golden brown algae. It has 2 orders, the centrales and the penales. The nature of its soluble is silica. Soluble is split into 2. Outer half is silicified and inner is pectic. Its food reserve are fats and leucosin, also vesicles. It only has a single flagellum. It is tinsel and the point of insertion is anterior. Its representative organism is the Isthmia nervosa. The next one will be the Cryptophyceae. The Cryptophyceae is also called the nearly brown algae. It also has 2 orders, the Cryptomonadales and the Cryptococcales. Its soluble is absent instead of a firm periplast, is present. Its food reserve is starch and the outside chloroplast envelope. It has 2 flagella. They're equal or unequal. Both flagella bears lateral hairs arranged in 2 opposite rows on longer flagellum and in 1 row on the shorter flagellum. The point of insertion is anterior or lateral. Its representative organism is the Rhodomonas sp. The next one is the Dinophyceae. The Dinophyceae is also called the dark yellow or brown algae. It has 6 orders. They are the Desmomonadales, Tecatales, Dinophysiales, Dinoflagellata, Dinococcales, and Dinotrichales. The nature of its soluble is mostly cellulosic and some have a periplast. Its food reserve are oil and starch and outside the chloroplast. It has 12 flagella. They are unequal and the point of insertion is lateroventral. Its representative organism is a Serratium sp. The next one is the Chloromonadinae. They are also called the bright green algae. It only has 1 order, the Chloromonadales. Its soluble is absent and its food reserve are oils and fats and cytoplasm. It has 2 flagella, which are equal. Its representative organism is the Vacuolaria sp.
The next class is Euglenophyceae. It has 1 order, Chloromonadales. It has no cell wall, and its food reserves are paramylum, fats, and the cytoplasm that is in close proximity to the chloroplast envelope. It has 2 flagella that are equal and is represented by the Euglena species. The next class is Phaeophyceae. It has orders Ectocarpales, Dilopteridales, Cutariales, Sporognales, Desmarestiales, Laminariales, Swacilariales, Dictyotales, and Focales. It has cellulose, alginic acid, and fucosinic acid making up its cell wall, and its food reserve is usually laminarin, mannitol, oil, and food that is formed in pyrenoids and diffuses into the vacuoles. It usually has 2 unequal flagella, whiplash, and thistle, and its point of insertion is lateral. It is represented by the Macrocystis pyrifera, or kelp. The next class is Rhodophyceae. It has orders Pangiales, Nemalionales, Gelidiales, Cryptonemiales, Gigartinales, rhodymeniales, and ceramiales. The nature of its cell wall is usually cellulose, pectins, and polysulfate esters. Its food reserve is Floridian starch and cytoplasm outside the chromatophore. It has no flagella and is represented by the species Gracilaria corticata. The last class is Mixophyceae. It has orders Croococales, Chemisiphonales, Plurocapsales, Nostocales, and Stygonymalus. The nature of its cell wall is made up of pectin, hemicellulose, and mucopeptide. Its food reserves is the Mixophycean starch and chromatoplasm. It has no flagella and is represented by the species Merismopedia species. Some updates on the algae group are a 2017 study in Nature Geoscience by Gainey et al., in which a team of researchers tested the impact of algae growing on snow, specifically a freshwater algae called Chlamydomonas nivalis, and they measured its impact on an Alaskan ice field. In their results, with satellite imaging data as comparison, they were able to calculate the increase in melting across the entire ice field due to the presence of the algae, an estimated 17% increase. The researchers then concluded that the phenomenon was a feedback loop that was an evolutionary survival mechanism of the algae. As the algae caused more melting, it increased the water content for it to consume, which increased its growth, causing even more melting. The researchers suggest that the effect is likely occurring in glaciers on other places as well, including those in mountainous regions in non-polar areas. The second study is a 2020 studies by Arguelles, in which she creates the first floristic survey that presents the taxonomy and species composition of phytophthal microalgae associated with bromeliad tanks of pineapples in Calauan, Laguna. The study shows a total of 15 algal taxa that were taxonomically identified from the collected samples, of which 6 species form 5 genera are classified as members of Cyanophaceae, and 1 species each for Euglenophyceae and Klebsormidiophysceae. The study reports an addition of 9 species, some of them being Phacus monellatus, Monoraphidium lunare, and Cogolastrum proboscideo, as new records in the global inventory list of phytophthal microalgae, and 13 new taxa as additional records of microalgae in phytophthal microhabitat of Asia. Also, first occurrences of rare photosynthetic euglenoid, like Phacus monellatus, and a green microalga, Monoraphidium lunare, are described for the first time in the Philippines. And our last report is a title called Algae, a potential source to prevent and cure the novel coronavirus. In this study made in 2020, Sundararaj and Elia Perumal, backed up by scientific reports on marine algal polysaccharides as potential source against viral infections, examined the microalgal species Arthrospira platensis as both an aid in immunity improvement and viral activity suppressor. The blue-green algal species has been proven to have potential activity against enveloped RNA viruses, which makes it a viable candidate against the COVID-19 virus. Their data shows that sulfated polysaccharides are the most viable source of antiviral agents from marine algae. The researchers concluded with the suggestion of the oral intake of Arthrospira platensis, as it has the antiviral potential and also is clinically proven to improve human health, hence improving the patients of COVID-19. And so, because algal species are micro in size, people tend not to be as interested in them as their macro counterparts. However, we must remember that the life of our planet did not happen in a day. It was the long, arduous process of modulating and regulating the physical conditions that which enabled us macroorganisms to live. The oxygen in our atmosphere is almost entirely the result of photosynthetic living, which would not be possible without the appearance of cyanobacteria or blue-green algae a long, long time ago. Thank you for listening.